I look forward to speaking in 5 minutes, everyone. And remember, we're live for the next 5 minutes.
Yes, we are live. Okay.
Here we are.
for kinds of things that Achille was talking about in the universal right to breathe means that right to
Hi, Martina, I think you're... Oh, you've gone. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this fourth Techfugees live session. Techfugees is a global impact organization working to empower displaced people through technology. We're a community of volunteers organizing events, running programs, and building projects with and not just for refugees. In March 2020, we started Techfugees Data Hub, a collaborative and collective effort to map the impact of COVID-19 directly or indirectly on displaced communities. We've been collecting data on not only the spread of the virus, but actions taken by grassroots organizations on the ground, governments and NGOs. We list concrete ways in which displaced communities are being supported today, either physically or remotely. This is a collective effort done by about 80 contributors from Australia to Colombia. So far, they've mapped hundreds of situations in 40 plus countries. The aims of our Data Hub are really, number one, to raise awareness about what's happening in a specific geographic area. Today, we're focusing on Europe and Greece with our live broadcast. And two, to promote existing projects supporting refugees and displaced communities and give the voice to locals to add onto the data we collected. So this is our Techfugees live, as I say, the fourth one. I'll just introduce you to my co-host, Camille, who will tell you who we're going to have speaking today. We have three excellent guests I'm looking forward to welcoming.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Matthew, for introducing me. So thank you all so much for being with us today. So we are very pleased to introduce you to our three speakers, Matthias Mertens, Jumana Abu-Oksa, and Mortasa Behboudi. So the three of them are based in Greece and work in different domains related to refugee rights. Matthias is based in Chios doing advocacy work as well as education programs. Jumana is in Thessaloniki, so in the Greek mainland, and it works there as a mental health manager. And Mortasa is based in Moria, where he works as a reporter. So the format of today's session will be, first I will introduce you to the general context of Europe and the Greek islands. Then each speaker will have a first short 2-3 minutes presentation followed by a Q&A. Then we will have a general Q&A with all the speakers, so you can please do post your questions in the chat on Cisco or on the Facebook Live, and we'll try our best to answer them if possible. And the conversation can keep going online afterwards in our Facebook group. So Techfugees is the name of our Facebook group. And so I will first start by giving you an overview of the situation in Greece and in Europe. So we can switch to the next slide. Thank you. So before giving the floor to our speaker, I'll tell you a bit about why we chose to focus on this issue for today. So the issue of the hotspots is not a new one. So some hotspots in the agency were created back in 2015, but they were formalized in 2016 following the EU-Turkey deal. And with that deal, they became the so-called reception and identification centers. So you can see them on the map on the screen. And so the hotspot approach is one that was conceptualized by the EU Commission. And we can say that it's part of the strategy of the EU to externalizing some procedures to third countries. So in this case, giving Turkey the responsibility to filter arrivals to Greece. And so the EU-Turkey deal allowed for people arriving in the islands to have their movements restricted to those places. Although the deal led to a vast decrease of arrivals, as you can see, this graph is for the last years, but 2016 and 2007, situation of the Leros hotspot. So it's one of the one on the map in the middle. Able to witness how the situation completely turned around in the last months of 2019 when there was a surge in arrivals. So indeed, concerning this hotspot, there were some reports in 2016, 2007 have locals and the presence of NGOs. However, in the late 2019, the living conditions have become dire. At the Leros hotspots have to live, for example, in an abandoned psychiatric hospital. Discussing health and food. So end of February, 4 years after the EU-Turkey deal. Oh. So yeah, more recently, so with the EU.
Hi, Camille.
Yeah.
Camille, apologies, everyone. I'm back briefly. Just say I think Camille's having some problems with her. Maybe try again, Camille, briefly. I know,
yes.
Obviously, with Wi-Fi, sometimes it's better to slow down to let the signal catch up.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work,
so
we're
I
happy
cut my
to
camera.
share
I don't
the
know
overview.
if it's better now. Can
it
you hear
is,
me
absolutely.
correctly?
Please do continue. Yeah, I
Perfect.
think we probably have to about a couple of paragraphs backwards. I think people will your very important overview. Thank you.
Thank you all for telling me. So as I was saying, as I was studying the situation from abroad of one of the hotspots in the agency, I was able to see that there was a massive change in the situation there in the last months. So the situation completely turned around as the hotspot became very overcrowded, and so there was a severe lack of access to basic services such as housing, health, and food. And more recently, so end of February, Erdogan decided not to control anymore the departures of refugees to Europe, as was part of the Turkey deal. And in reaction, Greece announced that it would suspend asylum claims registration for a month on March 1st. So this was done in spite of the Geneva Convention, and was followed by instances of pushbacks in the agency, of violence at the border, and by the creation of detention centers on the Greek mainland. So then, with coronavirus and generalization of lockdown in European countries, many other EU countries temporarily decided to suspend their asylum services. So we saw these practices that at first seemed very exceptional being kind of widened. And with the Techfugees data hub, our contributors based around the world gave updated information of the situation in refugee camps worldwide. And so personally, I was working on the Malakasa camp, a camp on the Greek mainland where a person tested positive for COVID-19 during the lockdown. And the camp was quarantined and has been quarantined since then, so since April. And so are the 5 hotspots in the Aegean Islands. So this is why we wanted to talk to you about the situation there. So as tourists and residents of Greece are now free to move around the country, these places are still under lockdown, and calls for the decongestion of islands have been growing for months. So thus, we wanted to invite people who could give you insights of their work in the Aegean. And without further ado, I'll leave the floor to Matthias Mertens, who works both for Europe Must Act and Action for Education. So he is the co-founder of Europe Must Act and has been active in the Aegean for Action for Education since October 2019. And before coming to Greece, Matthias was a teacher of history and English in Belgium and Taiwan. He is passionate about educational reform and access to education, especially for refugees.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. I've already switched off my video just to make sure that My audio remains uninterrupted. So I will start by speaking about Euroconstat, which is a movement, a campaign movement that brings together grassroots NGOs on the Aegean and also the rest of Europe to draw attention to the humanitarian crisis that is taking place here. Next slide, please. So the tipping point that brought us into being was in early March. So Camille, she referred to the fact that everyone had opened the borders with Greece. And this resulted in a wave of violence on the Greek islands directed at refugees and also at NGO workers. And the picture you see here is of the one family education and community center on Lesbos, which was set on fire. For us, especially for us working also in an educational NGO, this was a very shocking moment. And we also heard the news of the right to asylum being suspended. So every day, things became more and more absurd. And there was this feeling that we could no longer remain silent and just watch these things happening. We had to speak out. So we formed Euroconstat. Can you go to the next slide, please? And the goals of Euroconstat are firstly to decongest the Aegean islands. Secondly, to find a structural solution, and so in the form of a fair and humane EU migration policy. And lastly, to also advocate for more dignified and legal conditions of reception. And the way we do this is on the next slide. So our strategy is municipal. We focus on cities and towns all over Europe where we set up chapters, so small teams of people who campaign very locally. They address their mayors and city councils to push them to adopt refugee-friendly policies, and also to make their cities pledge to taking refugees from the Aegean camps. Now, cities and towns, they don't have any legal authority when it comes to migration. So the reason that we're doing this is to create pressure from the bottom, from the cities and towns towards national and federal governments in Europe, forcing them to answer questions about migration and integration of refugees and asylum seekers. Another important part of our strategy is, yes, thank you very much. It's our grassroots network. So reaching out to as many grassroots organizations as possible, because we believe that people who are on the ground dealing with the consequences of what are essentially bad policies, dealing with the human consequences of this, their voices need to be heard on the highest political levels, meaning EU level. So we want to bring together these grassroots organizations and amplify their voice. One other important part of our strategy is the fact that we're fundamentally positive. We believe that the situation that we have right now is a consequence of bad policies, and we can solve it with good policies. We believe that the right decisions can be made. And then the last part of our strategy is online activism, and this is something that we were kind of forced to by COVID-19. We didn't really have a choice to do offline activism. And this is through this online activism, online formats and demonstrations for people to participate in, something that we've learned to do over the past few months. And we've also been lucky that in the past month, we've been able to shift to some offline protests. And you can see an example here in the picture, which was taken in Germany, where people got creative and respected the constraints of COVID regulations. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. Some of our achievements, and here I want to emphasize, we've only been around for 4 months. We're a very young organization. We're still very much learning, but we already have achieved a couple of interesting things. So first of all, we had a meeting with EU Commissioner of Home Affairs, who's working on a new pact for migration. So we had a meeting with her, which gave us some insight into the workings of the EU Commission. Another achievement was very recent, which was 6 days ago on World Refugee Day. We had a Europe-wide action. 11 countries participated, well, in 19 cities in 11 different countries, people participated, and this action was also supported by 52 NGOs. And then lastly, an achievement that we're very proud of is connecting grassroots. Grassroots usually are very independent, and they're very proud of their independence, and this is something we very much respect. So it's not always easy to bring them together, and this is something that we have been able to do. We're very proud of this, that we've been able to bring together so many people who are doing valuable work. Next slide, please. And then to conclude some of our current projects, we are working on an Aegean grassroots report. So we want to present the situation on the Aegean from the perspective of refugees and grassroots, and use this to also formulate very concrete recommendations and policy proposals to then share with advocacy actors, decision makers, and also the broader public. Another project thing that we're very much working on is community building, building our network. All the organizations and individuals that are involved with us is still expanding. And for this, we're looking both physically and online. So physically on the islands, we're looking at developing hubs, so shared working spaces where grassroots organizations can meet each other, work together. And then online, we are looking for ways to make the network that we have more sustainable and continue to grow it. And I think this is maybe something that the techies among you might be able to teach us a couple of things on, because we're still very much learning how to do this. And then one final thing that we're currently working on is that we have actually launched early this week, is a joint statement on restrictive measures that may refer to the fact that the lockdown is over for Greeks and tourists can come to Greece, but for the camp residents, nothing has changed. They are still subject to measures that keep them in camps and access, or limit their access to various services. And we're calling on the Greek government to come up with justifications for these measures, because there aren't any right now. All right, thank you very much. So this concludes my very brief presentation on this action. I'm ready to answer your questions.
Hi, so yeah, concerning Europe Must Act, so we're wondering, are there already platforms at the agency level for different associations to collaborate, and if so, how does it take place?
Well, so pre-existing platforms. There is a group of loosely connected group of NGOs and grassroots organizations, but there wasn't up until now an organization like Europe Must Act bringing together grassroots organizations in the Aegean.
Another point was related to xenophobia, and have you seen the pandemic contributing to rise of xenophobia, maybe inside the islands or in Greece?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the xenophobia was already there, and COVID is now being used as an excuse to push through xenophobic policies. For example, like I just mentioned, those restrictive measures are in my personal opinion, a good example of such xenophobically inspired policy. So I'm not sure if I can say it has increased. I think the pandemic has created a window for those who support racist and xenophobic policies, and that's why it's very important for us as grassroots organizations to keep on campaigning and pushing back against these policy changes.
you for your answers. And finally, can you tell us a bit about how we as individuals can contribute to Europe Must Act?
Well, there are many ways. I think the easiest way is go to our website. We have on our website a tab that says Cities Must Act. There you can see if your city is already involved, and you can get them in touch with the team that is in your city. Or if there is no team and no chapter in your city, you can send us an email to hello@europemustact.org, and it's all the way below in the PowerPoint. You can find that email. Send us an email and tell us where you live and how you would like to get involved, and we will personally onboard you. So that's one way to get involved, but also like we are very open, very permeable. If you approach us with interesting activities, you will find you will find that we'll be really happy to listen to your ideas and see how we can work together and implement your ideas.
Great, Pius. Thanks so much for joining us today. And just to recap that link, was it EuropeMustHave.org and then cities? Could you remind me? Sorry, I've forgotten. Perhaps some people have on the call too.
Yeah. So if on our website, so EuropeMustAct.org is our website, and there under the section Cities Must Act, so our Cities Must Act campaign, we try to reach out to as many cities as possible and develop chapters in those cities. There you can join up with existing city chapters, or you can reach out to us to set one up yourself.
Oh, excellent work. I'm glad that you could present it here, and I'm sure it's going to grow. I'm sure you're going to need some help with that as well going forward. So if anybody wants to get in touch, I recommend they do. Excellent project. You've been kept very busy too. You kept yourself very busy in the Aegean. I know you've been working with the Aegean Action for Education as well in Chios. I wonder, could you talk through that? I know you have a short presentation there. Could you show us that?
Yeah, of course. So for Action for Education, I worked as a coordinator. Still am working as a coordinator on Chios. We can go to the next slide. Island to the coast of Turkey. The living conditions, yes, the living conditions in the camp, which is called Yell Camp on Chios, they were appalling. So the capacity, the camp was designed for 1,000 people. During the lockdown, it had a population of 5,300. So the camp is completely overcrowded. Around the original camp, tents and huts have been built, which is that area is called the jungle. So in this setting, social distancing is completely impossible. On top of that comes the fact that there's often a chronic lack of water. There aren't adequate sanitary facilities, so washing hands, another of the really basic, simple protective measures against COVID, is difficult or even impossible in this type of environment. So what we have here is a group of people who have been forced to live in conditions that make them extremely vulnerable to COVID-19. And you can go to the next slide where we have a look at the demographics.
Oh, sorry. Would you mind muting, Vishal?
Wait. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Okay, thank you very much.
We're good.
So, demographics of the camp. So for us as Action for Education, one very important group are minors. So on the 5th of May, this is some of the latest, most recent data that we have on the population. There were 5,350 residents in the camp, and of those, 1,284 were minors. So people between the ages of 0 and 18 years old. And of this group, 231 were unaccompanied minors. So those are minors who are separated from their families, they're by themselves. 85 of those are in the safe zone, and then the remaining 146 of the unaccompanied minors or UAMs are in the jungle, and especially with this group of unaccompanied minors is extremely vulnerable. It's very difficult to track them. It's very difficult also to figure out what their needs are, and then also to reach out to them and help them and provide services to them. So this is a very vulnerable group that, as a provider of non-formal education, is one of our main worries. You can go to the next slide, please. So what we do as Action for Education is providing non-formal education in setting up a camp. Right outside of the camp, we have a small school, which had a capacity of 100 for high school age students. And I say had because of the COVID-19 regulations, we are not allowed to have more than 26 students per session in our school, which has reduced our capacity almost by half. So we're at 52 now. And with the large population in the camp and our limited capacity has led to very long waiting lists. So our waiting lists are up to 6 to 7 months. So these are frustrating, long waiting periods for us, and definitely also for the students who are really eager to learn. And you can go to the next slide, please. It's frustrating because education is a basic human right. It's Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right to education, and this right is not being met. There are children in the camp with no access to education at all. What education also provides is a sense of normalcy. It's a group or a community you can be part of. It gives you structure, a place you can go to. This is very important. It makes people feel welcome, it makes people feel valued. And lastly, education also offers a future-oriented activity, something that offers you a perspective on the future, something that will be a benefit for you in the years to come. This is incredibly valuable activity. Here I conclude my presentation, and we'll get your questions.
Well, thanks again for detailing everything there. Just looking at everything, I know we've spoken before, really how much of your work is now around advocacy for children, rather other than education. I know we had a session with Norwegian Refugee Council a couple of weeks ago in the Middle East, and they were very concerned about having a lost generation who are going to lose a certain amount of education or almost all their education. So I wonder how much has your work shifted after COVID-19 towards advocacy for children and education?
Well, for me personally, very much. It's also through the work that I started doing for Europe's Act, which is essentially advocacy work. Has also led to advocacy work for Action for Education. And I think it is the worries of having a lost generation are very, very justified. And it is important to advocate for better access to education. And what we think is important to work on in the coming months is, for example, bringing together all the different non-formal education actors that currently are active on the Aegean Islands, and share best practices and identify what are shared challenges, and then see how we can deal with them. I saw, for example, someone sharing here in the chat something about Still I Rise on Samos, and yes, we're very much aware of their work. So I think now is very much a time for us to come together and work together and see how we can do advocacy together as well.
Great, because I just wonder, can you even plan in the medium to short term? It's not something you can really do at the moment, the situation in the Greek islands and in Greece, I think. Does it help to collaborate with other organizations? We have quite a large tech and NGO community interested in growing humanitarian tech. I wonder, what kind of tech are you using to help you collaborate, to help you educate, and where could people maybe help you with that in both senses of for these children at the moment?
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting point. So, yeah, well, during the lockdown, we set up some online learning platforms for our students to even with the restrictions to be able to reach them and offer them an opportunity to continue learning. But one of the bottlenecks there is access to internet. In the camp, it is very difficult to access internet. We have done distributions of SIM cards, but this is very difficult to set up. It's very difficult to reach, to make sure that these cards then reach the right people. The data is also burned through very quickly. So one bottleneck is providing Wi-Fi internet in the camp to then allow our students to access online education platforms, educational technologies. And then the other side, the advocacy part is very much the challenge. Well, the challenge that we're dealing with is we have this growing network. We have, which also means a growing flow of information, and dealing with that flow of information, making sure that we can really maintain the network that we have and identifying essential information. This is something that we're struggling with right now. We haven't found a solution yet. We're very much learning in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthias. I'm jumping here because I think that Matthew do have some connection issues as well.
Okay.
You do have a lot of questions in the chat, so feel free to answer those.
Okay, I will just quickly look around and spot some of the questions. Give me a moment. So have we been in touch with Ilva again? We have been communicating with her, but we haven't had a second meeting. This is something that we're working on. Like, one of our goals is maintaining a dialogue with her, and one of the ways that we want to do this is by continuing to expand our network and gather information, expert information on the situation in the region, to become more of a credible actor, and so that she will hopefully have another meeting and continue the dialogue. Then let me look for more questions. So the quarantine requirements on HEOS at the moment, and how that adversely is affecting volunteer numbers for NGOs. Currently, the country is open to foreign tourists, so people can travel to Greece again. So we're hearing of volunteers coming to the islands. We, with Action for Education, have a protocol that we follow where incoming volunteers are expected to self-isolate in separate apartments away from other volunteers for 7 days up to 2 weeks, depending on where they have come from and the amount of risk they have been exposed to make sure that there's no to minimize the risk of infections. So volunteers it's possible for volunteers to come to HEOS, to come to the islands again, but yeah, I think it's very much a responsibility of NGOs and grassroots to make sure this happens in a safe way. And as far as I know, this has also been happening.
Matthias,
yeah,
I'm back. Apologies for that, everyone. I think it's a bad day for the internet. Hope you can see me. Thank you very much, I would say, for your contributions there. We will have a Q&A at the end as well. And please do feel free, obviously, to reply to everyone in the chat as well. I know we didn't get to say it's a very difficult situation, I think, for you, obviously, in the islands, but also around the fact you're a small group. So I know it's important that small groups work together. So I do say to everybody, again, if you can help with any collaboration software, and that might be very welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you. So we'll now move to Jumana Abuaksa at Elpida Home. Jumana is a psychologist and humanitarian focusing on protection and trauma issues in crisis. She's worked for many human rights organizations in Geneva, Greece, the Middle East, the ICJ, ICTGA, Oxfam, UNICEF, MSF, many others. Also educational academic institutions, Jerusalem and Bard College. She's worked around human rights violations, protection on SGBV, torture, refugee-related issues. So really pleased to welcome Oksana here today. Thank you very much for spending the time with us. And Oksana, I wonder if you are you here?
Yes, hi.
Great, hi. I wonder, could you talk through the current situation for displaced persons in Greece and the Greek islands, and really what you're seeing at Elpida? And I'm sure you're keen to give us an overview of Elpida too.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending. My name is Jumana, and thank you for the introduction, Matthew. First, as the mental health manager and protection manager of Elpida Home, I would like to talk a little bit about Elpida Home and what the work that we do. Elpida Home is a small Greek organization, started in 2016 during the refugee crisis, especially when the people were stuck on the border after the borders closed. And the first project of Elpida Home was opening a shelter for vulnerable cases of refugees, mostly women, single women with kids. That shelter was operating for over a year. And then because of the approach of integrating people into society, all the people were moved to urban accommodation in northern Greece, in Thessaloniki. So Elpida Home is based in Thessaloniki. The second phase of our project was opening a community center to provide services to all refugee communities in northern Greece. In our community center, we provide mental health and support services, protection services, legal services, help in getting appointments for medical in hospitals and government clinics in northern Greece. We started providing support and help in the employment section, which is one of the most important parts in the integration part for refugees who receive their asylum in Greece. And we also provide and conduct detention center visits, including me as the mental health and our lawyer. So we meet with refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants who have been detained upon arrival or for any other reason within the police stations in northern Greece. We collaborate a lot with different local organizations and international organizations in northern Greece. Our beneficiaries are mostly either referrals by other organizations or self-referrals, where people come and knock the door and come in. And we are also part in all the different coordination meetings within northern Greece that are in collaboration with the UN, government officials, and the different organizations. This is in general the work that Elpida is doing. For us, we try to be open to everyone. People who are homeless, people who are already supported by other organizations and in the accommodation schemes that are provided at the moment, and people in camps. So anyone is welcomed here. If they belong to any other organizations, only we receive people who have been referred to us, because we don't want to double the work that we are doing. Like, they can receive the same thing from different organizations, and we try to prioritize for the most vulnerable people. In short, this is the work that we are doing here in northern Greece. I would like to give a different overview of the work that is the situation of the refugees in northern Greece, especially during the COVID and in general in Greece, because since 2015, with the start of the crisis, there has been lots of changes and lots of new updates and decrees issued by the government and by the EU, agreements done with Turkey, and all the geopolitical situation has been affecting this crisis. And it's very important to know that this is a political crisis rather than a humanitarian crisis. Because if we look at numbers of refugees, the numbers arriving to Greece is not that high. The only problem of worsening the situation and the difficult conditions that the people are living in is due to the political political reasons, because Greece is considered one of the the doors to Europe. So and Europe doesn't want to receive as many people as possible. So the situation is not the best, as an understatement.
You're doing a lot of work, Jemana, a very busy organization. I wonder also, how has COVID impacted your work?
Well, during the COVID, we had to close the center, but work from home. As a psychologist, I was providing most of the services from the house. We started online mental health chat support chat. We are also using WhatsApp, which we've been always using WhatsApp for making appointments, being in contact with all our beneficiaries. We were not able to accompany the cases to the hospitals and provide them with translation during their appointments. However, we were providing the translation via phone when the doctors accept that, because they don't always accept that. There were lots of confusion and lack of information for the community, also for people, because every other week, you will have a new update on the situation of the COVID and how the situation is affecting the people. So we try to keep up with updating, spreading information to our beneficiaries, either through the WhatsApp, the Facebook, different social media, phone calls, and talking to people. During the COVID, I will talk now about the mental health part of the work.
I wonder, could I just ask briefly as well?
Of course.
How difficult is it to get accurate information anyway in Greece? I mean, even we had a question about numbers. How difficult is it to get information on numbers year on year? And then how difficult is it to get information for displaced people, for NGOs? And what's COVID done to that?
Well, information distribution, there's two things. There's the official information that's being spread by the government, and they do it as often as they can or as accurate as they can try. However, the reach of this information to the people is the difficult part, because first, the beneficiaries, they mostly rely on social media and Facebook groups and different other outlets for their information, which is mostly based on rumors. And these rumors are ruining these people's lives, because the information is spread by smugglers, by traffickers, by people who want to steal their money, abuse them, and this is affecting the whole process of how they are living in Greece or in any other places. The other problem is that most of the information spread initially in Greece, it has to be in the local language, in the official language, which is Greek. By the time it's translated and distributed to the beneficiaries, it takes time. And by the time it reaches the beneficiaries, it has changed, because in this COVID situation, everything was changing fast. The measures of restriction, the closure of official offices, the postponement of appointments for asylum, the postponement of appointments to receive their asylum cards, the residency cards, their passports, which was very important for many people, because many people look at Greece as a transitional period where they come, they apply for asylum, they get their residency permit, and then they apply for the passport, they get the passport, they fly to Germany or any other country in Europe, and then apply for asylum again there. So this whole procedure has been stopped. And the people who were hoping to leave in May and June, now everything is delayed until next year.
But they don't know, I guess, when an announcement will come or where to find accurate information around it. That's a big problem.
Not everyone. Yes, this is a problem, because people who are staying in camps usually try to follow up on the different social media, and they try to ask and get information from the camps and the staff who are working in the camps. During the COVID, there was limited number of staff working in the camps. So that minimized the information distribution there. The people who there are different accommodation schemes in Northern Greece or in Greece in general. There's people who arrive, who are placed, they go to camps and they manage to stay in camps. some people who are considered vulnerable enough, they are put in the accommodation scheme, which is called the STIA, where they are funded by the EU. The EU sends the money to UNHCR. UNHCR has already partners, local partners, who are rented houses, and they manage these houses where they put the people to stay. They provide them with mental health. They provide them with escort to hospitals. They help them with the social services, with the finding jobs, learning Greek. So they provide them with this whole social support system. And there's the people who are staying with IOM, which is a different program funded by the Greek government to IOM, and most of the people, they are either staying in camps operated by IOM, or hotels that have been rented, and people are staying in these hotels. The difference between each program and each conditions that the people are living in is that the people who are staying with the STIA program are mostly located in big cities. There are different services provided for them more intensely. The people who are staying in hotels, they're more because you have to find a hotel which can be available, so they're a bit further than cities. Some of them are near big cities, but some are very far. And it's different provision of services, especially access to education when we talk about kids.
Right.
So the other problem that came is because of the COVID-19 and the postponement of the asylum decisions, of getting the passports, of getting the residency permits, many people, everyone, according to the Greek law, if you receive asylum, if your asylum application has been approved, within 1 month you have to exit your accommodation, and the money you're getting, the support money that you're getting, will be cut. So people who were supposed to leave during the COVID, they received the announcement that they have to leave their accommodation by end of May. These people were expecting to receive their residency permit and passport before May, so that they can get their passports, they can get their residency cards, and they would leave, because finding jobs during the COVID, of course, is not.
Everything stopped.
Everything stopped. And that kind of paralyzed and changed the whole plans of people within northern Greece.
Absolutely. Were they given longer? Obviously, they had to stay, but what was the legal status, or is there confusion there as well? Just to give people a picture of what's happening there today.
4,000 people received notice to leave their accommodation by the 30th of May. 4,000 approved asylum applications have received notice to leave their homes by 30th of May. Right. So these people, some of them refused to leave the houses or the camps. Some of them had to leave the houses and the camps. However, finding a job was not easy. Speaking the language, the Greek language, because there are not enough integration program. The development of integration program only started recently. So not enough Greek classes for them to learn Greek. And they needed to get their tax number, get their social security number, and different other legal registrations from the government that became very difficult also to obtain, also because of the COVID and because of the new regulations of the government that have been.
Right, so double piece. And I'm sure none of this has gone online. Language translation, interpretation, I'm sure it hasn't gone online. What's really happened around COVID? What kind of impact is this having on people's mental health, would you say, as a psychologist who sees people every day?
Well, there has been a big increase in requests for mental health support. We've seen a big increase in domestic violence, lots of anxiety issues, fear, also from the situation, from the COVID, from their existing mental health problems have increased as well. Especially the ones in the camps, because of the crowdness of the number of people in the camps, the lack of proper sanitation, the lack of proper, as was discussed before by Matthew, there's not enough water, cleaning products and stuff like that. And because everybody's living in crowd, like all together, very close to each other. So all this made people freak out, like literally freak out. And we started receiving lots of self-referrals or people who would be referred to us due to their deterioration of mental health situation.
Okay.
However, we need to keep in mind that we in Greece, we have people who arrive here who speak different languages. We have Arabic, we have Kurdish, we have Sorani, we have French, we have different African languages that are not easy to find translators for. We have Urdu, we have Pashto, we have many languages. And when we receive people with different languages, usually when we are during our work at the center, we ask the referral organization to send a translator with them because we don't have enough translators for all these languages. During the COVID, one of the problems was finding translators, especially when you're doing a session online. It's not as efficient.
Yeah, how has that worked out, do you think? What kind of ratio are you getting, just to give people an idea of how successful are you finding interpreters and translators?
It's not that easy. It's not that easy, especially because when you're working in mental health, like for medical, it's much easier. But when I do my sessions, the people have very heavy issues. I will not be accepting any person to volunteer because the issues they will hear, it will affect the translator. And my obligation is also to protect the translator. So
right, so you need some pastoral care as well for the translators. Yes. Okay.
And I also have a discussion before and after to make sure that they can. It's not easy stories that we hear here.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. So this is not an easy to find. However, their translation and translators can be beneficial for lots of our work, and not just the mental health, but the medical, the job, trying to find jobs and helping in jobs, translation for different things. Like I have few suggestions that I thought maybe to discuss at the end of this presentation, but since we're already talking about that, maybe I can, maybe guys will have.
Yeah, I guess tell us your suggestions. I guess we have this big humanitarian and tech focused audience. Yeah, I would say a lot of people have already suggested, we haven't seen in the chat, some interpretation apps and processes there which are automated. But what would really work, and saying to everybody now, there are engineers listening to us, I'm sure. What kind of resources do you need?
Okay, I have a few simple needs.
Even better, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that we do is when we do the mass distribution of information, like if there's a new announcement by the government and we need to reach, usually we either publish it on the Facebook or we send it by WhatsApp. However, if we make the WhatsApp group, it means all the numbers are there. And we try to keep the anonymity of people, especially if there's women and men, because the women don't want their numbers to be distributed. It can get them in trouble with their family members. And that can increase domestic violence, which we don't want. No. So I was wondering if it's possible to create a mass distribution application that can keep the different, I don't know if there's such a thing, I'm not expert in this field, but that can keep the identity of the different recipients, like BCC, let's say, as in an email, anonymous, so that they cannot see the different numbers of everyone who is in the group. This is one suggestion. Another thing that we find that we are facing as a challenge in our work, especially the medical department, is that when we have someone who is a beneficiary in our medical department and they have medical issues and suddenly they're home and they need an ambulance. They don't speak Greek. They need to contact the ambulance and they need to explain where they live and what's happening. So usually, they don't do, like they try to count on us, which is not good because we want to help them count on themselves because they can do it. If they want, they can do it. So try to develop something that either an app or a few phrases, I live here in Greek or in the language that in the country they're living, so that they can call the ambulance or the police by themselves and feel empowered enough to do that. This way, we help them integrate because the whole purpose of them becoming, receiving their asylum in a country is for them to start integrating and rely on themselves, not rely on NGOs. We're here to support them, but support them and help them integrate and rely on themselves rather than hold their hand in everything.
Absolutely.
And this is the approach we try to do at ELPIDA, because one of the problems that the NGOs, include all the NGOs that created, is the dependency between the NGOs and the beneficiaries. We need them and they need us. However, for integration and full integration in these countries that they will be living in, they need to rely on themselves, and they are all capable of doing that. We can be there to guide them, to tell them where to go, to tell them how to go there, but they need to do it by themselves, including calling the ambulance if they have an emergency.
Yeah, absolutely. As you would expect, I suppose. We just had a suggestion, somebody suggested WhatsApp Business. Our CEO, Josephine Guber, suggested Discord might work. So some ideas there, and certainly a challenge to engineers, maybe Telegram, I don't know, but something to get working on, I would say, if you want to help Joanna there.
Yeah.
And also around calling people directly, I'm sure there are solutions. So it sounds to me, what I'm getting is obviously is a massive resourcing problem here, right the way through from the information through to communication. And perhaps the tech people here can help. I know we're running over. Apologies, everyone. Apologies, Jemana. We had a couple of connection issues today. We have one more speaker. But,
I have the last two.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wasn't just going to say goodbye like that. Do you have a suggestion, or how would you like to round up today? And please do tell everybody where they can find you with Elpida.
Okay. Well, the last two ideas that if someone can help is creating an online calendar to book appointments. Like something that we can put in our system. Like if we have a referral, we can send them the link. They can check our slots for example, for the mental health division. They can find where it suits them, because we're a small team. And in order to serve and provide as much services to a bigger number and be more efficient, I think creating such a online booking calendar would be very helpful for us.
Absolutely.
And the last thing is job provisions. Finding jobs in Greece is not that easy. However, many people here who are like refugees, asylum seekers, they have capabilities, they have their degrees, they are intelligent, and they want to use their previous work experience. If there are any online jobs that they can provide, that they can work, that they can join, telemarketing, anything, we would be more helpful to get. It would be very helpful for us to get these connections so that we can connect them, because we help them in creating their CVs. This way they can live in Greece and receive a salary from abroad, which is in any other country in Europe is more, and will enable them to live in a very humane and dignified way here.
Great. So, and also more direction, I imagine.
Yeah.
Work brings more direction. Well, thank you, Jemana. Really, we could do 2 hours, I'm sure, on everyone today. We tried to be as brief as possible. Thanks for staying with us.
Thank you.
Where can everybody find you? Is elpida.com?
elpida.org, and I will put all the details now in the chat.
Okay, wonderful. So elpida.org. Thank you, and look forward to speaking again soon.
Thank you.
But we do have Q&A at the end. We'll have a bit of time, I think. I'll move now back to Camille, who will introduce Mortaza Behboudi, a journalist from Afghanistan.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for the discussion, and thank you, Matthew. So we have our last speaker, Mortaza Behboudi, who is also involved in issues related to communication and information regarding the situation in the camps. And so Mortaza is a journalist from Afghanistan who relocated to France in 2015 as a political refugee. It's the third time that he's working on the Greek island of Lesbos. And in 2018, he already worked in the Moria camp for the UNHCR. And currently, he's a reporter for the French-German network Arte. So he's now a Lesbos correspondent in there, and he reports on the situation in Moria. So Mortaza, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your work at Lesbos and how it was impacted by COVID-related measures?
Hello, thank you very much for having me. My name is Mortaza Behboudi, originally from Afghanistan. Myself, I am a political refugee in France since 5 years. I'm currently here in Lesbos Island, reporting for Arte TV, correspondence here since March, since the decision of President Erdogan decided to open the borders. As Arte, I can say we are the first media that created a page on our website, in German and French, about Moria camp and what is happening inside the largest refugee camp in Europe. if you click on the link that I sent in the discussion, you can see all the reports that we did since February about the health conditions, about the pandemic of coronavirus, about the solidarity between refugees, giving them voice that can also, they can tell the stories by own, and about the doctors, for example, and also I'm doing right now about the pushbacks, what's happening on the scene. Okay, right now, since March 19 on here, the situation is getting worse in Lesbos because the confinement, the quarantine has been prolonged again until July 5th, as you know. That after the Greece lifted the lockdown on May 4th, the mayor of Mytilene, city of in Lesbos, sent a letter to the Minister of Migration in order to prolong the quarantine in the camp, especially in Moria camp. The letter published in Lesbos News, the newspaper here, the local newspaper, and after the decision of the Minister of Migration, Greece, and also the Minister of Health, Public Health, the quarantine prolonged again. And this is the fourth time that the quarantine prolonged. Since we could go to the camp, as you know, also, I don't know the information. Working as a journalist in the camp is very difficult. Why? Because the Moria prohibited for journalists since 2016. No journalist cannot enter the camp and reporting from inside the camp. The jungle and the olive grove is something else, where we can go and shoot and interviewing people, asylum seekers, and also refugees. This is very difficult. Why? Because with the arrival of pandemic coronavirus, we don't have any confirmed cases in Moria camp for the moment. But those coming reports is coming from outside because the island is closed to everybody. But now, since the lockdown lifted, people can come, journalists can come, as also volunteers. They can come. They have to respect the this self-isolation of 2 weeks before, but now it's only 7 days. And so, as the camp in 2016, I was working for UNHCR. The population of the camp was they were only 6,000 asylum seekers, migrants. But today they are more than 18,000. This is the number of UNHCR. More than 18,000 asylum seekers and migrants, and also those they have all the status as a refugee, considered refugee. The situation inside the camp, I mean, is I cannot say that because I'm as a reporter and also the refugee myself. I'm coming from a part of the community of refugees here. The majority of them are Afghans from Afghanistan, and can continue speaking to them, and also those from countries as Cameroon, Congo, can speak to them in French and also in English and Farsi. They're telling the stories, what's happening during the night. The violences are increasing inside the camp during night. People, they cannot go to the toilets at night because there are people, they are stabbing from different communities. In past 24 hours, 3 people have been injured inside the camp. The women's security, if you see one report about the women's security inside the Moria camp, the 3 women told the story of what's happening to them inside the camp. They cannot go, they have to wait the night until in the morning in order to go to the toilet because they cannot, there's no security inside the camp. One miners, unaccompanied miners have been killed inside.
I think Mortaza's
2 months later.
Mortaza, I think you had a quick connection problem there. I wonder, could I just ask as well, how long has the situation got a lot worse recently? And also we had a question, how long are people staying in the camp? Just to give people an idea of when they arrive, how long they're staying here.
Yes, of course. The duration of the stay, I mean, when you arrive inside the camp, it depends on the case. If you have a social case or a political case, it depends. To the vulnerability, of course, that the the public health organization, the local hospital, they have an office inside the camp, call it now EUV or Kelpno. They're giving the vulnerability certificate, but today they are issuing the FU certificate only those they are really vulnerable in order to move them to the mainland. They can stay from 6 months to 2 years. I met people asylum decision.
Thank you. And the violence, has it got markedly worse recently, or?
Yeah, as a asylum procedure is very long here in Greece, and especially in Moria camp. This waiting is killing them, as one of the asylum seeker women, pregnant women, told me. This waiting is killing us. This waiting coming with trauma, coming with getting angry faster, and also thinking about the future. For example, attempting to suicide. For example, among the unaccompanied minors, we had 3 days ago, one of them, an unaccompanied minor, stabbed himself. And also one Syrian guy stabbed himself in front of the police office inside Moscow.
Right.
Yes, in the media, because they don't want to tell this news, and also
I was going to ask,
very
tragic
they cannot
events.
enter the camp.
Sorry, I think we've got a bit right, and not widely reported. But how are you working to report this? Is it being more widely reported with Arte now you're here? How's that going?
Actually, we received the 2 authorization of filming here in the port of Mytilene in city, and also in the Olive Grove, but we cannot enter inside the camp. If we enter in the camp and the filming inside the camp, there is a fine of 5,000 euros with 3 months prison. We know that journalists in the beginning of the March, journalists have been attacked by the locals, by the anti-immigrants in the city of Mytilene, and also in the village of Moria. As Moria, as a reporter, we have to hide. We cannot bring cameras, for example, big cameras inside the camp in order to report. But we are only filming with the smartphones, coming, interviewing people, the asylum seekers, in order to tell the stories. Also, I'm filming with my mobile phones. All the reports you see in the RT, it's with the phone, with the smartphone. Because it's very dangerous. Because if you see one of the Russian journalists, he has been attacked by the asylum seekers in the camp with the knives, big knives, because he entered inside the camp with a big camera, and he lost his camera, and also has been asked by the police officer.
Right, very volatile and dangerous situation. I wonder, Camille, do you have any questions as well?
Yeah, thank you, Mortaza, for your presentation. And so we were wondering, can you tell us more about your project of app reporters?
Sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
Yes. So you told us that you were developing an application which is called Reporters. Can you tell us about the project behind it? Yes.
Before I introduce project, but I want to mention that on past 48 hours, we received many information here about the pushbacks, because it's very important to speak about the pushbacks as well on the Asian Sea. In only last 48 hours, 2 boats pushed back by the Greek Coast Guards, and they're rescued by the Turkish, in the total of 62 people. Almost the majority of them from the African countries, also from Syria, Afghanistan, Iran. They're all the information you can find it on the pushbacks if you're interested about this news. You can see it in this website, the Turkish Coast Guard. They are reporting every 24 hours about how many people they have in the screen. But I'm coming to the to present my new project, Reporter. It's an online application that can help the reporters from around the world working remotely. For example, I don't need, if I use this application, we're gonna have this opening of the application from the next November. This application is a international global application for the reporters and the future reporters. I don't need to come to Lesbos. For example, I can contact the reporters in the field and asking for the pictures or the images. This application help for the security, for the safety around the world.
Well, Tazo, again, just breaking up with this very important information.
They can connect to the reporters in the field directly in order to work, collaborate with them. And also receiving the security alerts from the and also the breaking news from the news agencies as AFP, French news agency. Yes, we're going to launch the application in the next November during the Bio Prize for the war reporters in France.
Well, congratulations. Really, where can we find it? Does it have a URL yet?
No, for the moment, no. You can only see this because the website is not online now. But we're going to communicate it on my Twitter account. You mentioned it in the discussion. Yeah, and I'm going to inform people about the launch. But this application is only for the journalism and the
yes, it sounds
from
brilliant.
around the world, of course, in English. Yeah.
And we were wondering, so considering your work you're doing in Moria, are there any ways that people in the tech community could help you? And can you think of any suggestions of a place where you might need help?
Yeah, there are a lot of talents inside the camp. We have to, I mean, the lack of information, as the other speakers mentioned, there's a lack of information between the refugees and asylum seekers in the camp. They don't know, for example, mapping a refugee camp. I heard about an application, but I don't know if there is because sometimes they don't have access to electricity and also Wi-Fi, but those can access to this. We need to map a refugee camp. It's like the largest camp in Moria. People, they don't know where to go to see doctors for the English run by refugees themselves. There are 2 schools right now in the Moria camp, but many people from inside the camp, they don't know. But if I don't know, I need an application or something that a WhatsApp group that we shared for all the camp people. But this is something that we have to work on it. I mean, the tech community have to work on this. How to inform with the right information the new arrivals or also the migrants in the camp.
Just had a comment there on the number of trials that have been done around this. There's certainly something to be built on, but again, it always comes down to resourcing and cost. It seems the tech's there, but we need more resources. Could I ask Murtaza very briefly, I know we're running quite a long way over now, just the pushbacks, how long have they been going on for, do we know?
Yes,
is it a recent phenomenon?
Yeah, yes, the pushback is illegal deportation from in the agency that the people, the Greek Coast Guard with the mask people, they're coming, they destroy the engine of the boats and leaving them on the sea for more than 20 hours. One boat stayed in the sea for more than 20 hours in order to be rescued. Finally by the Coast Guards. But they pushed back them because the nearest city in the Turkey is Ayvalık. But if you see all the data is about Ayvalık city in Turkey, that the boats pushed back there in June 24th, 2 boats pushed back in the total of 62 people.
Right. Well, thank you for that information. I hope you can read more about it. I hope that process is stopped. Practice is stopped as soon as possible.
Information about in this in Turkish, but it's not. I mean, we have to be sure that what information that we are receiving, and also be capable to identify the right information, because there's all the rumors coming from the both sides, from Turkey and Greece. We have to not to be like creating fake news, because it's very important. We have many fake news created inside the Moria camp, rumors by the refugees or also smugglers. We have to be informed.
Okay, thank you. I want to, Camille, do you have any more questions? Just I know it really is time to wrap up. I think Mortaza was saying some help with mapping and also with interpretation, translation. Again, if anybody working on that from any angle, I'm sure you'd be glad to hear from them. We certainly would. Camille, did you have any more questions?
I think the overview was nice, and thank you very much for detailing the events that are taking place. I mean, right now, like in the last 24 hours, as you said, what is going on both in the Camp Moria and in the agency. I think it's very important to bring those voices forward in this time.
Okay, great. Well, I think, again, we could do many more hours. I'm sure we'll return to Greece. I hope we speak to you again, Mortaza. And just regarding the Q&A, I think most of the questions that worked quite well were answered online whilst this conversation was going on. So please, you can join us if you want to continue the conversation, techfugees.com, our Facebook group, techfugees.com /Techfugees, Techfugees on Facebook. You know what I'm saying? It's not very, very hard to find. And we'll be back again on July the 25th to talk about Libya with many contributors there. So we look forward to seeing you again. We also have, you can see now, our Techfugees mapping project. That's at techfugees.com /mapping COVID-19 impact, or bit.ly COVID Techfugees. But you'll find everything you need at techfugees.com. Please do join us on the mapping project too, if you'd like to. So just to say thank you to all our contributors. I don't know if you're still online, if you want to say briefly goodbye. And we'll look forward to seeing you again on July 25th. Please do stay tuned at techfugees.com, Techfugees on Facebook and also on Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Thank you for the speakers. And see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.